This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ashley Banfield with breaking news here at CNN. It's 11 o'clock on the East Coast, 8 a.m. on the West Coast, and a shocking attack, a shocking death. A United States ambassador in Libya dead today. The Obama administration taking steps now this hour to beef up security at embassies around the world after this veteran diplomat, Christopher Stephens, along with 3 of his American staffers, were murdered by a mob in Benghazi, Libya. The attack yesterday was apparently triggered by a film produced by an American by the name of Sam Basil. It's a film considered by many to be highly offensive to Islam. Again, a film. These murders, of course, taking place in a country that the United States helped to liberate from the dictator Muammar Gaddafi. A mob also attacked the U.S. Embassy in Cairo, Egypt, yesterday. Look at the pictures. Protesters climbing the embassy walls, secure embassy walls, tearing down and ripping apart the United States flag. It is unclear at this time if these attacks were coordinated or if they were planned to coincide with the 11th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks here in America. But moments ago, our president, Obama, spoke out about these killings.
The United States condemns in the strongest terms this outrageous and shocking attack. We're working with the government of Libya to secure our diplomats. I've also directed my administration to increase our security at diplomatic posts around the world. And make no mistake, we will work with the Libyan government to bring to justice the killers who attacked our people.
We are covering this story from as many angles that CNN has all over the world, and we begin in Tripoli. That is the site of these killings. Our Jomana Karache is live for us. Jomana, just tell me right now what the circumstance is there. Is there still violence in the streets? Has that government cracked down? What's happening in Tripoli today?
Well, Tripoli actually does seem to be very calm today. The news of what happened in Benghazi did spread around Tripoli. And speaking to many Libyans today, people on the street, they were shocked and dismayed by this attack, voicing what their government has come out with, saying that they feel very sorry. They apologize for what had happened to the U.S. consulate, to the death of the American citizens, including Ambassador Stephens. They say that this is not representative of the sentiments the Libyan people as a whole in general have for the United States and its people. There is a lot of gratitude for what the United States did for the Libyan people last year, and it's the role it played through NATO in supporting the Libyan revolution and ousting Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Now we're also hearing from the Libyan government top officials today, holding a news conference a little earlier, also condemning these attacks and vowing to bring those responsible for the attack to justice, hinting that this was carried out as suspected by Islamist radical groups that operate in eastern Libya. The Speaker of the Libyan Parliament, the General National Congress, saying that there are all indications that this was orchestrated around the September 11th anniversary, and saying that Libya rejects the use of its land for what he described as revenge attacks, reassuring the United States and the international community that they are working to secure foreign nationals and foreign interests here in Libya.
Jomana, the Secretary of State called this a small and savage group, and I'm interested to find out just exactly what the administration in Libya, and particularly Prime Minister Abdurrahim al-Kaib, has said publicly, not only to the global audience, but to his fellow countrymen, to condemn this in the strongest possible way. Because we often see leaders condemn things to the United States and then say something different to their own people. What's happening there?
What we're seeing is the majority of the people here are voicing what their government has voiced. Condemnation, saying that this is not representative. The real issue here is that this is not an isolated incident. In the past few months, we have seen similar attacks in the East targeting foreign interests. We have definitely seen one with a bomb outside the same very building, the U.S. consulate building in Benghazi, detonating back in June. There were no casualties in this attack. A few days later, the convoy of the British ambassador was attacked in Benghazi. These attacks were claimed by a radical group loosely affiliated with jihadi groups, including Al-Qaeda. Now, the real issue here is that the government has not taken a strong stance in dealing with these armed groups, heavily armed groups that are operating in eastern Libya. We have heard from Western intelligence sources over recent months that there are even some training camps in parts of eastern Libya around the city of Derna, where some al-Qaeda figures are present. We've heard from Libyan officials in the past saying they are aware of these reports, they are aware of these groups, they're keeping an eye on them, but nothing has actually been done to confront these groups and deal with the seriousness of this issue.
Right, and thank you, Jumana Karache. As you continue to watch in Tripoli, I want to head over as well to Cairo, Egypt, where the other attack on our embassy was carried out yesterday. I want to talk to Mona El Tahawi, who joins us now. She's an Egyptian journalist. Mona, just quickly tell me what the reaction has been from Mohamed Morsi, the president of that country. We've heard from the Libyan administration in strong terms. What have we heard from the Egyptian administration about what happened in that country to our embassy?
Well, actually, we're still waiting to hear from our president, and that's what myself and many people here in Egypt are very disappointed and quite shocked by. The fact that we haven't had an official statement from the president himself. We had a statement on television in the name of the government, but many of us, especially those who care about our revolution, and remember, this is our first post-Mubarak president who was elected by Egyptians going to the polls, we want to hear from him a very strong statement that says that our revolution has goals to achieve, and those goals do not include scaling the wall of the U.S. compound or the U.S. embassy compound. I want to make something very clear, Ashley. I believe in the right of freedom of expression, and I also believe in the right of freedom to protest. But the big question about what happened yesterday in Egypt is why at the U.S. embassy and why yesterday. And the last thing that many of us who care about Egypt want to see happen is to see this revolution that we're all so proud of be derailed by a right-wing fringe. And when I say right-wing fringe, I mean a right-wing fringe in the U.S. and a right-wing fringe here in Egypt. As I'm speaking to you, I'm driving through the streets of Cairo, and I assure you, as a Muslim, that I'm sure that Prophet Muhammad would be more offended by the horrendous poverty that many Egyptians live in. I film that hardly anyone saw on YouTube until the small group of people at the embassy yesterday made such a fuss about it.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm looking at the pictures of these people who scaled the walls of the United States Embassy in a friendly nation, in a nation that boned up the security on that very street that we share with the British Embassy back in 2003 when the Iraq War broke out. Then it was bolstered again in 2011 during the Arab Spring. How did these people get to the position they got to? Where was the security?
Again, actually, that is a question that many of us are asking, because just, about 10 days ago, Egyptians marched onto the Syrian embassy to protest the horrendous massacre of Syrians fighting for freedom there by the Assad regime. And Egyptian security forces beat many people up and arrested many people up and even exchanged rocks with many of the protesters. I'm not calling for violence against anyone or from any side, but we have to ask, where was Egyptian security yesterday, especially around the U.S. embassy, which usually was treated like a fortress? So again, I ask, where is Egyptian President Morsi? And what is he doing to secure our revolution? And what is he doing to make it clear that he does not allow this right-wing fringe to play on the right wing in order to allow him to play in a more centrist position? Remember that we spent 30 years under Hosni Mubarak, who, by the way, was supported by 5 U.S. administrations, which created deep anti-U.S. sentiment here, understandably. But Hosni Mubarak would play the center to the Muslim Brotherhood right-wing fringe. Now we have a Muslim Brotherhood president, and the last thing we want to see is him allow these extremists who marched to the embassy yesterday to play the right wing. Our revolution has its goals as liberty, bread, and social justice, and these must not be derailed by a right-wing fringe, either here in the U.S. or anyone who seems to be offending us. Because
right, Mona El Tahawi, thank you. I have to leave it there. I've got a lot to fit in. We've got the Secretary of State, we've got the President all speaking today. Mona El Tahawi reporting to us from Cairo. And all of this stemming from a man. The man behind a film that has sparked this violence and this uproar and now these murders. According to the Wall Street Journal, the man is 52-year-old Sam Basil. He wrote and directed and produced the 2-hour movie, adding that he is an Israeli-American, a real estate developer, tells the Wall Street Journal that the entire film is not available online, only its 13-minute trailer. He's quoted as saying Islam is a cancer and that it is a political movie. He also told the Journal that he raised $5 million from what he quotes as 100 Jewish donors. CNN has been trying extraordinarily hard to reach Mr. Bassil since yesterday. There is word he's in hiding, but we are going to continue to bring you more information about him as it becomes available. And certainly we will continue our efforts to interview Mr. Bassil about his production. In the meantime, our Secretary of State mincing no words, condemning the killing of Ambassador Stephens. And moments ago, she blamed the attack on what I said earlier, a small and savage group and not the government of Libya. Elise Labit knew Ambassador Stephens. She works with CNN and the State Department. Elise, before we talk about your relationship and the ambassador himself, I want you to tell me the most important part of what Hillary Clinton said. Was she working towards a message of condolence, or was she trying extraordinarily hard to make sure the world knows that the relationship between this country and Libya is unaffected?
Ashley, I think she was trying to do all of those things. Show condolences, show shock, show condemning this horrible attack, but also saying this would not deter the United States from working ahead with the Libyans, and this would not end the bond that the U.S. has with the Libyan people. She said it was a very small group of extremists that carried out this attack, and in fact, Stephens and his team were very popular in Libya. Let's take a listen to what Secretary Clinton said just moments ago.
This is an attack that should shock the conscience of people of all faiths around the world. We condemn in the strongest terms this senseless act of violence, and we send our prayers to the families, friends, and colleagues of those we've lost.
Condolences, reach out to kind of rally the troops here at the State Department, but also say there's no justification for any type of violence of this nature, Ash.
Let me ask you now about your personal relationship with the ambassador and the work you do. I know that you have a lot of opportunities off air to spend time with these State Department employees and get to know them, and you in particular got to know Chris Stephens pretty well.
That's right. I mean, you know, sometimes it's not that we hang out a lot of times with State Department diplomats, but this was someone who was very social, wanted to bring a lot of journalists and State Department officials and analysts together in a more social setting to talk about issues important to the region, to have a little bit of fun and get to know each other so everybody's work is more understood. I first met Chris Stephens when he was the chargé, the head of the mission to the U.S. Embassy in Tripoli in 2007, when the U.S. was trying to restore ties with Libya. And I traveled to Libya then under Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice and spent a lot of time with him. We did a lot of stories when he was involved in them, traveling throughout the country. Also, you know, then he continued to really care about Libya. And just before he left, after he was the envoy to the opposition, he really, after Gaddafi fell, he really wanted to get back to the country that he loved so much. He talked about it all of the time, and really just a really popular guy at the State Department, had a lot of friends, very popular at the Foreign Service, really seen as the cream of the crop. So I'm hearing from a lot of his friends and colleagues today how shocked they are and how saddened everybody is that this guy, who's just by all accounts a really nice guy, had family in Northern California, his family getting a little older, certainly they're mourning terribly today.
Elise, I have to fit in a break, but I just have to ask you quickly, do you know anything more about the IDs on the others? We know Sean Smith, the head of the Foreign Service Information Management Office, but what about the other IDs?
Still notifying the next of kin on those IDs, so they don't want to say anything yet, Ashley.
Elise Labit joining us from the State Department. Thank you for that. Back right after this.